Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Charine Nirvisesha Shunyavani Bhajatari Satarine. Hey Krishna. So today we're continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, entitled The Status Quo. Chapter 12, entitled Creation of the Kumaras and Others. And today we'll cover texts 29 through 31. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Text 29, please repeat. Tam adarme kritamatim.
Tam adarme kritamatim.
Tam adarme kritamatim.
Tam adarme kritamatim.
Vilokya pitaram sutam.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Vilokya pitaram sutam.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Vilokya pitaram sutaha.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Please chant.
Tam adarme krita matim. Tam adarme krita matim. Vilokya pitaram sutaha. Vilokya pitaram sutta. Marichi mukya munayo. Marichi mukya munayo. Vishrambat pratyabodhayan. Vishrambat pratyabodhayan. Tamadharme kritamatim.
Vilokya pitaram sutaha.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Anybody else?
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Vilokya pitaram sutta. Marichi mukya munayo. Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Tamadharme kritamatim.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Vilokya pitaram sutta.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Marichi mukya munayo.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Vishrambat pratyabodhayan.
Word for word synonyms, please repeat. Tam.
Tam.
Unto him.
Unto him.
Adarme.
Adarme.
In the matter of immortality.
In the matter of immortality.
You know, it says, I think this is a misprint. It is. It should be in the matter of immorality.
That's what I thought.
There's a T added in there.
Okay. Oh, we can say.
Riktamatem,
Pratamatim.
the mind being so given.
The mind being so given,
Vilokya,
Vilokya,
seeing thus.
seeing thus,
Pitaram,
Pitaram,
unto the Father.
unto the Father,
Sutaha,
Sutaha,
sons.
Son,
Marichi Mukya,
Marichimukya,
headed by Marichi.
headed by Marichi,
Munaya,
Munaya,
sages.
sages,
Vishrambat,
Vishrambat,
with due respect.
with due respect,
Pratyabodhayan,
Pratyabodhayan,
submitted as follows.
submitted as follows.
Translation and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So this is Maitreya speaking to Vidura, relating a history of the Father of the Universe, Lord Brahma. Vidura is very interested in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, but he understands the proper etiquette to begin with. Let's start from the very beginning. Very good place to start. So they start with creation. So Lord Brahma is being discussed here. And yesterday we had class by Devi Puja Prabhu in which we read the text 28, in which we learned that Lord Brahma apparently did an act of impropriety, and he looked at, if not approached, his daughter with lusty mentality. So now Maitreya continues the history.
But it was just mentality, it wasn't anything.
Right, apparently it was just a mentality, he didn't go through with the act.
Yeah.
So now we'll start with 29. Thus, finding their father. Oh, so what happened? This is not good, right? To see your father do an act of impropriety. So, he has already created quite a few sons through his mind and through his body. Thus, finding their father so deluded in an act of immorality, the sages, headed by Marichi, all sons of Brahma, spoke as follows with great respect. The last three words are the most important in this verse. With great respect. Not with challenge, you bum, and with great respect. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The sages like Marichi were not in the wrong in submitting their protests against the acts of their great father. They knew very well that even though their father committed a mistake, there must have been some great purpose behind the show. Otherwise, such a great personality could not have committed such a mistake. It might be that Brahma wanted to warn his subordinates about human frailties in their dealings with women. This is always very dangerous for persons who are on the path of self-realization. Therefore, great personalities like Brahma, even when in the wrong, should not be neglected. Nor could the great sages headed by Marichi show any disrespect because of his extraordinary behavior. We'll read two more verses. Text 30. Naita purvai kritam tvadye nakarishyanti chappare yastvam duhitaram gaccher anekrin han gajam prabhu. O Father, this performance in which you are endeavoring to complicate yourself was never attempted by any other Brahma, nor by anyone else, nor by you in previous kalpas, nor will anyone dare to attempt it in the future. You are the supreme being in the universe, so how is it that you want to have sex with your daughter and cannot control your desire? Purport. The post of Brahma is the supermost post in the universe, and it appears that there are many Brahmas and many universes besides the one in which we are situated. One who fills this post must be ideal in behavior. For Brahma sets the example for all living entities. Brahma, the living entity who is the most pious and spiritually elevated, is entrusted with a post next to that of the personality of Godhead. So we hear that Lord Brahma must be a pure personality, and when there's not such a personality to take the post, then the Lord himself will expand and play the role of Brahma. But that's the exception, not the rule. So, what is the role of a leader? I mean, there's so many duties, but one of the roles of the leader is to set a good example. And why do you have to set a good example? Well, we have this verse in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna 3:21 says to Arjuna, Yad yad acharati shreshtas tattari viktaro janaha sayat paramanam kurute lokastananuvartate. That whatever actions a great man performs, others will follow. The common people, they just follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, whether good or bad, exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So now the sages were very respectful. And they said to Lord Brahma that what you've done has never been done in the past. It isn't done in the current Brahmas, and no one's going to undertake this in the future. So I'm sorry to report that their optimism was a little incorrect. I'm sorry to report that today it is very common for fathers to look at their daughters with lust. I mean, it's disgusting, but we do read in the newspaper, if you dare to read the newspaper, which I don't, but that there's this thing called child abuse going on, and it is very common to be the father or stepfather towards the daughter or stepdaughter. So the sages said, nobody will do this in the future either. But unfortunately, as Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita 3:21, whatever acts a great man performs, common men follow. Whatever standards, whether they're bad standards or good standards, whatever standards he sets, all the world pursues. So this is why leaders have to be exemplary, pure, proper, and perfect, if that's possible. Because the rest of us follow the leader, subtly and grossly. So one more text, 31. Tejayasamapi hetanasu shlokyam jagadguru yadritam anutishtan vai lokashemaya kalpate. Translation, even though you are the most powerful being, this act does not suit you because your character is followed for spiritual improvement by people in general. So what a horrible disservice when a person in a spiritual leadership position falls down, doesn't act of impropriety, and then the ones who follow get so disappointed. Purport, it is said that a supremely powerful living entity can do anything and everything he likes, and such acts do not affect him in any way. For example, the sun, the most powerful fiery planet in the universe, can evaporate water from anywhere and still remain as powerful. The sun evaporates water from filthy places, and yet is not infected with the quality of the filth. Similarly, Brahma remains unimpeachable in all conditions. But still, since he is the spiritual master of all living entities, his behavior and character should be so ideal that people will follow such sublime behavior and derive the highest spiritual benefit. Therefore, he should not have acted as he did. We'll stop there. We'll resume at 32 tomorrow. Very important point. That, yeah, the king can do no wrong. The king is above the law. However, for the benefit of the underlings, the subordinates, the king or leader should be ideal. because one will follow. So interestingly, this section that we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam is highlighting, no matter how embarrassing it is, it's highlighting an apparent act of impropriety on our leader, if you will, Lord Brahma. We belong to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So he's considered the father of the great-great-grandfather of the Sampradaya. Is it not kind of wrong to perceive that your spiritual authority has done something wrong? I mean, you want to reject them, So, although we belong to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, the Gaudiya Sampradaya, started by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, also called the Nimai Sampradaya, is not technically all in line with the Madhva Sampradaya. So the Madhvites, they do not accept this passage, this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because they can't conceive of Lord Brahma doing an act of impropriety. So how do we get around that? Well, we'll just say that section of the Bhagavatam is fictitious. It's been put in later by somebody. So they kind of just cross that section out. And they don't accept it. Our acharyas, the Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas, though, they don't see it as black and white, accept or reject. Rather, they harmonize. And they see, yes, this was a big black mark, this act of impropriety. However, it wasn't actually an act of impropriety. It was arranged by Krishna's illusory energy for the purpose of educating others. What is Lord Brahma's role in this universe? Yeah, he's the creator, but why is he creating the universe? To give all living entities an opportunity, not just for material well-being, but for spiritual advancement and emancipation. So in order to teach, your students or your children or whatever, you've got to show them sometimes what happens if you don't do it right, So our acharyas explain it like that. No, we don't delete that section of the Bhagavatam. Rather, we glorify that section of the Bhagavatam. That just see how Lord Brahma, as the perfect teacher, underwent this act of impropriety to warn all of us and to teach all of us. So interestingly, there's some more history to this that isn't discussed here in the 3rd canto, but is revealed in the 10th canto and in other places that I thought would be interesting to look at today. We're hearing about how Lord Brahma, did this act of impropriety. We're hearing how he got kind of questioned or criticized by his sons. But we don't hear anything about what happened after that. Like, what's the result of all that? So later in the Bhagavatam, we do hear about this. So there's an interesting history that I thought we could go through. And we'll start from the beginning. That one of Lord Brahma's sons, born from his mind, Manasaputra, is Marichi. So Marichi, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Marichi represents the mind. Now Marichi had 6 sons. So they're like Brahma's grandsons. And they're named Smara, Udgita, Parishvanga, Patanga, Sutrabrit, and Grini. Apparently, these sons were already born at this time, because it said that during the first Manu, Swayambhuva Manu period, is when Lord Brahma looked lustfully upon his daughter. These 6 sons of Marichi laughed. You know how boys are. They laughed that Lord Brahma, their grandfather, did an act of impropriety. So they got cursed. So here we're bringing up the point, what happens when you criticize at the book? These boys They were not like Marichi and the sages that we just read about. Marichi and the sages, with great respect, it said, approached Brahma that, my dear Lord, we're perceiving this act of impropriety. Why has this been done? And, whatever. But these boys didn't do that. They jumped to conclusions. Oh, he must be ill-motivated. He must have bad intentions. He must have a bad, dirty, filthy heart. He's a loser. He's like this. He's like that. What kind of a leader are you? And they laughed at Lord Brahma. So as a result, these 6 boys got cursed. I mean, that's worse than bad karma. Bad karma is one thing, but getting cursed, bad news. So these boys got cursed, that you are going to take birth in the dynasty of demons.
Who cursed?
Well, in one place I read that it was Lord Brahma that cursed them. But in another place I read that they were cursed by a Brahmana. Lord Brahma is a Brahmana, but whatever. They got cursed. Is the issue here. So you're going to take birth in a dynasty of demons. So here's Hikachuku. He's also existing at the time of slain Bubamanu. And he has a son named Kalanemi, who's a demon. So Kalanemi has 6 sons, who are therefore the 6 grandsons of Hikachuku. And their names are Hamsa, Suvikrama, Krata, Damana, Vipurmardana, and Krodahanta. So these 6 sons of Kalanemi, they were very expert in military arts. And, you want to win, right? When you're a military fighter, you want to be able to be the victorious one. So they did some puja, and they worshipped Lord Brahma. Now this is interesting, right? In their past life, as the 6 sons of Marichi, they laughed at Lord Brahma. Now in this life, they're going to Lord Brahma. Oh, my dear Lord. And they prayed to Lord Brahma, and they worshipped him. And he came, and what do you want? What's your desire? And they said, oh, Lord Brahma, we want the benediction that we'll never be killed by humans or animals or weapons. And the list went on. And Brahma was like, okay, so be it. You'll be these fantastic military folks. Well, that's nice. Now they've got this boon. But their grandfather, Hikachuku, you know what his mentality is, right? I'm the Lord of the universe. Right? Not Lord Brahma. I'm the Lord of the universe. How dare you worship somebody besides me? He says this to his grandsons. How dare you go to somebody else for a boon? I'm the supreme person in this universe. You come to me for a boon. So he was so mad at his grandsons. He said, I curse you. Again, they're getting cursed. I curse you that in your next life, your own father is going to kill you. So, their father, Kalanemi, he was also a great warrior. And when the time came for a big war between the Devas and the Asuras, Kalanemi obviously is on the Asura side, and Vishnu is always supporting the Devas. And in that big war, ultimately, Kalanemi got killed by Vishnu. Not just another warrior, but directly by Lord Vishnu. So when Kalanemi was dying, as he got killed by Lord Vishnu, he vowed that I'm going to take birth and I'm going to kill Vishnu. So now we go forward a little bit, and here we are, and here's this great demon named Kamsa. And we learned that Kamsa was Kalanemi. who took birth with the mission to kill Krishna. The 6 sons of Kalanemi, they, one after the other, take birth as the sons of Devaki. So their birth names are Kirtiman, Sushena, Bhadrasena, Riju, Samardana, and Bhadra. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur envisions them as being also known as Kama, Krodha, Loha, Moha, Maha, and Matsarya. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. And he makes a very nice comment that we know these 6 sons of Devaki took birth one year, next year, one after the other. And each and every time Kamsa came and slaughtered them because they were cursed to be killed by their own father. Remember, Kamsa is Kalanemi. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these 6 sons getting killed by Kamsa before the 7th child, Balarama, enters Devaki's womb, and before the 8th child, Krishna, takes his birth there. Vishwanath says that these 6 sons, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Maha, and Matsarya, first appear. He says Devaki's womb is like the womb of bhakti. And you know, when we start off in sadhana bhakti, we're like very polluted, conditioned souls. So, you know, Krishna's not really going to sit on our heart at this point. We've got our Paramatma, but it's not that our Ishtadev is like shining forth there at this point. So these 6 enemies of the mind. Remember, our mind can be our best friend or it can be our enemy. Why? How is the mind our enemy? Because it's the sitting place of these 6 enemies of the self. So Vishwanath says that these 6 sons, lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy, they take birth one after the other, and they're killed by Devaki's fear, he says. That Devaki, that he makes this, he has this vision that Devaki feared Kamsa, right? Because she knew he wanted to kill all her sons. He feared Kamsa. So by fearing Kamsa, which he says represents material existence, by Devaki fearing the personification of material consciousness, these 6 anartas got annihilated from her womb. And then when these 6 enemies of the self got annihilated, then Baladev was able to enter her womb. And Baladev is Guru Tattva. That Guru Tattva can now come and, you know, like you prepare the field before you plant, make it fertile. So the Guru comes and makes the field fertile. We've gotten rid of those nasty weeds, those anartas, annihilated those. Now that's just step 1, annihilate the nasty weeds, and whatever else is there. Now you cultivate make the, prepare the field. That's the job of the Guru. And now when the field is ready, then the seed, Krishna, can enter. So Krishna was the 8th son of Devaki, and he was able to then take birth in Devaki's womb because the anartas had been purified, Guru had come and prepared the way, and then Krishna enters. So the important take-home point from this history is that just see what happens when we unnecessarily criticize a devotee. So in Chaitanya Bhagavat, so later in Krishna book, we hear that Devaki was so happy, when at one point she got to again meet with Krishna and Balarama. We know they grew up in Vrindavan, not in Mathura, and then later on she gets to meet them again, and she's all overwhelmed with love, motherly love. And she asks Krishna, can I ask you a favor? Sure, Ma, what would you like? She said, before you took birth, I had 6 baby boys, and they all got killed. They all got taken away from me. And I'd like them back. So Krishna went down to Patalaloka, and there he met Bali Maharaj, who is situated there, and he demanded that the boys be returned. And this is what he tells Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj is actually his dear devotee. So for the benefit of Bali Maharaj, Krishna told the history of how these 6 sons of Devaki ended up in Patalaloka, of all places. And in that description of the history, he gives a lesson to Bali Maharaj and to all of us. So from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, we hear this. Krishna says, as a result of ridiculing the activities of an exalted personality, they were forced to take birth in a family of demons. Because of the sin incurred by laughing at Brahma, they had to suffer in various ways. Listen, Bali Mahashaya, this is what happens if one ridicules the activities of a Vaishnava. I am teaching you this so that you will never blaspheme or ridicule Vaishnavas. If one who worships me and chants my name blasphemes my devotee, his progress is checked. One who simply worships me but does not worship my devotee is proud. He is not qualified for my mercy. It's a very heavy lesson. So now, our Vaishnavacharyas, as I mentioned earlier, they look at this pastime, this passage in Srimad Bhagavatam, as a beautiful and significant and necessary lesson. Yes, the lesson is, thou shalt not perform acts of impropriety. But really, that's not bhakti, that's karma. Acts of impropriety are not in the realm of bhakti. That's a karmic thing. You go out and you smoke and drink and what have you. Okay, that's karma. But his real lesson is in the realm of bhakti. And what kills us in our path of bhakti is not our karma. Oh yeah, I've got bad karma. That's why I can't get up early and do my sadhana, or I can't do service. That's not karma. What really hurts the devotee is the Vaishnava aparad. So this is the lesson that Lord Brahma allowed the Lord's agent, the illusory energy, to use him as an instrument to facilitate this pastime so that we can get this lesson, that thou shalt not accuse devotees. They were accusing the boys, the grandsons of Brahma were accusing with their laughing. They didn't speak the words, but through their laugh and their disgust, they were accusing Lord Brahma of something he wasn't guilty of. It looked like he was guilty of it, but he's not actually guilty. So not only do we not criticize devotees for, oh, he did that, she smoked that, and he ate that, and whatever, act of impropriety, we don't even go to the subtle level of, accusing one's intentions or motives or mentality behind what they did without properly researching and finding out. So otherwise, you just read what the consequences are. So not only should we not criticize devotees and, whatever, the Lord himself in the 11th canto, speaking to, I think this is, that one I'm not sure, these other two I believe are to Uddhava. Here's 3 important verses from the 11th canto about criticism. So the first one is 11:11:16. A saintly sage sees with equal vision, and therefore is not affected by that which is materially good or bad. Indeed, although he observes others performing good and bad work, and speaking properly and improperly, the sage does not praise or criticize anyone. So we're talking about even non-devotees. Thou shalt not criticize or praise, because whatever it is that you're praising or criticizing is just movements and permutations of the modes of nature. You know, like, what are you getting wrapped up in that for? And then the Lord says, I believe to Uddhava, 11:28, 1 and 8, one should neither praise nor criticize the conditioned nature and activities of other persons. Rather, one should see this world as simply the combination of material nature and the enjoying souls, all based on the one absolute truth. One who has properly understood the process of becoming firmly fixed in theoretical and realized knowledge, as described herein by me, does not indulge in material criticism or praise. Like the sun, he wanders freely throughout this world. So that's the secret to peace, is that one doesn't spend their time criticizing or praising, especially when it comes to devotees, because we read the consequences. So we'll stop there, see if there's any discussion.
How did the Basu, what is the term, the Basus? Because we've heard that the children